Look at this little shit. When I'm with him, he moves like a slug, but when he wants to get away from me, all of a sudden the little guy becomes fucking Seabiscuit. Welcome to a really bad review of A Plague Tale: Innocence. I don't know why they added that second bit. By the way, it's almost impossible not to spoil this game, so... You play as a young French girl called Amicia, who belongs to a wealthy family. Life is pretty great. Until your dog gets a John Wick treatment, your dad gets his neck sliced open, your mum gets impaled by a spear and you get stuck with this disease-ridden little whiny brother. Oh yeah, and rats are constantly trying to eat you. Yeah. Shit gets deep real quick. So welcome to the roller coaster that is A Plague Tale. I don't like the title, by the way, but it is what it is. My first point regarding the game's story is that it's immersive from the get-go, something I really appreciate. The tutorials are simple and shown as and when needed, and there isn't too much time at the beginning wasted by needless explanations and tasks, and the game follows this theme throughout. It's a heavily story-driven title that takes a classic story about the plague and gives it a unique twist. It's nice to see a game solely focused on the story and not much else, within reason. However, you do follow a fairly linear path through the story as you aim to save Seabiscuit over here from some magic rat disease that later turns out to be some godly power used to kill the Pope or some shit. But I don't know, he looks like the Pope. I know he's not, but it's just say it. Rat Pope game. Considering I've ruined most of the story for you in a spectacularly shocking fashion, let me just tell you what I think about it. It's actually fucking decent. When I watched the trailer for this game, I almost didn't bother playing it. It looked woeful and didn't do the game any justice, but after some consideration, and the fact that there wasn't really much else to play at the time, I took the plunge, and I was pleasantly surprised. It's a solid and unique idea, and it's immersive from the start, which I've already said, but it isn't by any means a masterpiece and could definitely use some polishing. For example, the voice acting's sketchy at times, but generally it ticks all the boxes, and if you like a story driven game, this is a great shout for what I'd imagine is a comparatively small budget title. And then it all comes crashing down. This is one of my biggest issues with story driven games. There's a fine line between what's almost an interactive story and what makes a proper video game, and A Plague Tale really sits on the fence here. Like, it's kind of pretty damn fine. There's enough elements here to keep you occupied, but nothing to get you remotely excited. You have the use of a few tools and mixing options, as well as what I'd consider a pretty primitive upgrading system. You can very much tell that the story was written without anything else in mind but the narrative. And I don't necessarily have an issue with this as long as it doesn't tarnish the experience of the video game being, well, a video game, I guess. And unfortunately that's kinda what's happened here. I mentioned before that everything here is pretty linear, so each obstacle feels very similar and repetitive in the game. It's the story and the music that immerse you into the situation, not the actual gameplay itself, and because it's so limited in what you can actually do, there isn't really much to say. You have this sling that you can attach different projectiles to depending on the situation, but as long as you've got the supplies, you can basically approach every situation the exact same way. As well as this, there is very limited variety. You spend about 90% of the game just sneaking around and mostly avoiding enemies. Having a few more scenarios where you're forced to run away while being chased or battling it out with soldiers would have broken up the monotony of the gameplay a little, but they didn't have that too much. That's all I really have to say about the gameplay, to be honest. It's a bit poo-poo. This is a tricky one. I can say off the bat that they aren't anything to write home about, nothing new or groundbreaking, and a lot of the mediocrity in the graphics is hidden behind dark environments with low lighting. That being said, the direction and consistency is honestly pretty impressive. You don't get that a lot in games, and there were moments where I looked at it and thought to myself, you know what, Hugo isn't so annoying. I only want to delete him from existence a little bit at the moment until the next time he does something so fucking dumb that he ends up getting me or himself killed, in which case it's back on again like Donkey Kong, you little I mean, you know what, this game actually looks pretty nice. It's all down to perspective and what you're playing it on. I played the game on PC with all the settings ramped up, so the lighting looked great and the character models were alright, I suppose. Maybe not so much actually. all things considered, it really isn't that great looking back at it. Nah, fuck it. The graphics are bang average. Get fucking wrecked. Yes, this was a short review. It was a pretty simple and linear game, and I actually have a job now, so I don't have much free time, hence the 3-week gap between uploads. But, you know. The story! 8 out of 10. Solid, unique and focused. Enjoyed it from start to finish, and despite not being a masterpiece, I commend the development team for coming up with something fresh. The characters could have been a little bit stronger, but that's only its real big downfall, to be honest. The gameplay! 3 out of 10. It wasn't disastrous, it was just lacking quite dramatically in variety and wasn't what I'd consider fun. It fit well with the narrative of the story, but it could be quite frustrating in parts. Also, Hugo is a massive burden and such a massive turd that I just want to feed him to the damn rats. The graphics! 5 out of 10. They have their ups and downs, some of the environments and lighting are well executed, but the character models are pretty weak, especially the NPCs, so yeah, overall it's just very average. The plague effect! 7 out of 10. The game was a fresh and unique idea in the current market, something different that was mostly well made, just lacked a bit of variety. And overall it's a 6 out of 10. If you like story games, I'd highly recommend this. If you like high quality content and gameplay, maybe not so much. So I know this review is pretty short in comparison to my others, but to be honest, so was the game, and the lack of gameplay options left little to talk about. Also, like I mentioned before, I started a job now, so I don't quite have the same amount of time to dedicate to playing games and also making these videos. Oh, just burping that. I will try and get more content out, I promise. At the end of the day, this is kind of what I want to be doing, so, you know, subscribe and share and that. Also, Twitter, handle on the screen now. Follow me for updates on videos and to see me rant about other stuff. Yeah. Thanks.